Welcome back to another episode of the Clinch Fight Podcast. I'm once again joined by my co-host, Mr. Josh Hurst. Josh, how's things?
What's happening, mate? You okay?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Apologies to our small crop of loyal supporters that do follow our channel. We haven't been recording for a while. Just before we start, I want to give a shout out to Manscaped, who are the leading male grooming products, not just domestically, but the whole universally. Okay. We can give you 20% discount using the code CLINCH. Check them out, guys. Give yourself an early Christmas present for, those hairy cherries downstairs.
Probably a good Christmas present, isn't it?
So this episode, we're going to talk about the biggest, I would go with the biggest fight of this year. Is that fair to say, Josh?
Yeah, it's got to be, isn't it?
It's a fight that I think boxing needs at the moment. I think we've had, in my opinion, I don't think we've had the best year of boxing. And I think hopefully now this fight, AJ vs Usyk, along with Fury Wilder, is kind of bring good attention back to the sport. We've had our Trillers, we've had our circus acts, we've had a lot. We've had the Jake Pauls, we've had the weird, it's been a strange year for boxing, but I think now we've got the heavyweight division back. And I think these fights, they're not just important for the landscape of the heavyweight division, but I think they're important for the sport of boxing itself and for the sport to be taken seriously again. So I'm going to we'll start with the main event, AJ vs Usyk. Josh, how do we see it going?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's quite refreshing just to see some actual boxing. I think heavyweight boxing particularly is always gonna, that's the bread and butter of what drags people into actual boxing. So yeah, very much refreshing to see. I don't know. I think I think the narrative is that AJ sort of walks through him and then looking onto Tyson Fury again. But I really think a lot of people, maybe if they don't know that much about Usyk, or they're just basing it maybe what they've seen in the last couple of fights, this is probably, I would say, Anthony Joshua's hardest fight to date.
I agree.
I think as much as just to keep it short, I think Anthony Joshua probably will win. There's a lot of things that can go wrong for him, and I think Usyk could definitely be someone to upset, to rock the boat now. So I'm not too sure. How about you?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the experts basically really say that it's like 70-30 in AJ's favor, and a lot of the experts actually heavily favor AJ. I've seen a lot of people say they're going to knock him out. So AJ's going to knock Usyk out in about 8 rounds. And I've got to be honest, I agree with you. I think this is AJ's hardest fight to date. I actually see this as a 50-50 fight. When you consider what both have achieved in their careers so far, I mean, AJ's done it with a bigger audience, on a bigger scale, plus being a heavyweight, he gets more attention, he's got the bigger fan base. But Usyk's a former gold medalist, he's a former undisputed champion, and now he's tested himself in the weight above. AJ's achieved similar things, had a similar career. He won the gold medal also at the same Olympics, as well as winning 3 of the belts. So he's not far off becoming undisputed champion himself. And I think they've both kind of, I don't know, I can't help but feel that these guys have been like destined to meet. I think they really have, and especially when, like I said earlier, they both won gold at the London Olympics, only one weight division apart. Usyk's no stranger, as well, people need to remember, to the heavyweight division. He beat Joe Joyce in the amateurs. He's won medals in Eastern Europe at super heavyweight. He took part of the world boxing, I think it's called the World Series of Boxing. I think it was called, wasn't it, in the amateurs?
It's like it's amateur, but it's in a pro setting. I think it's like 6 rounds or something.
Yeah, it's kind of like a similar kind of thing to professionals, but it was amateur fighters competing against each other. And Usyk was fighting at super heavyweight in that series, and as far as I'm aware, I think he never lost. He was undefeated in that as well. I don't remember him ever losing in that. Yeah, so I think it's complete 50-50, and I really, I wouldn't see it as a shock if Usyk pulls it out the bag.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think there's definitely a sort of element of maybe a lack of respect for Usyk. I think maybe the main sort of giveaway is just the size issue. I think looking at maybe if you want to be critical of Usyk, seeing, he didn't really make great work out of Chisora. Don't get me wrong, he still won, but Chisora is hardly a sort of mobile. He probably does hit hard and slugs it at you, but he looked like the size did make a bit of a difference there. So I'm not sure whether maybe now he's had a bit more time to settle in and sort of felt real heavyweight power like with Chisora or something like that. And like you said, maybe if he goes back to his experience with Joe Joyce, the likes of that, maybe he settled into the weight a bit more. I'd like to think he'd come in probably as heavy as he can as well, because he's going to be faster either way, because there'll be a limit on how heavy he can be. But yeah, definitely been overlooked, I think.
Yeah, I agree. If you go back to kind of Usyk's last two performances at heavyweight, he simply has not looked impressive at heavyweight. I think, considering he breezed through the cruiserweight division against very good opposition, like Gassiev is no joke. He's gone up to heavyweight himself. He also beat Marco Huck, who was a solid champion for a long time, probably past his best, but quite a big cruiserweight who has fought at heavyweight. I think he was supposed to fight Joe Joyce, wasn't he, Marco Huck, for the European. And yeah, I think Usyk made light work of that cruiserweight division, but going up to heavyweight, he hasn't exactly looked like a kind of David Haye explosive version or Evander Holyfield, has he? But you could also argue his style was never really explosive in the first place. He kind of stuck to the old school kind of fundamentals of boxing, if you like. And, he liked his method of victory is usually to outbox his opponent, get them thinking. So, yes.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think, he hasn't looked great. And I think in comparison to how dominant he did look at cruiserweight, that would be my only thing. And maybe that's why he does get a bit of stick about, why
that was the point I was going to come on to. Yeah, that was where I lost my train of thought. But I think because he hasn't looked impressive at heavyweight, I think a lot of the experts now are very confident that AJ is just going to kind of, I'm not saying they're not, I don't think they're going as far as saying he's going to wipe the floor with him and get him out of there early, but they seem pretty confident that AJ is going to take it. And I think as well, if you consider that the home advantage AJ has, AJ's no stranger to these big stadium occasions anymore, is he? Where this is kind of, even though Usyk has been on the road, pretty much all of his defenses, I don't think he's even defended in Ukraine, has he? As far as I'm aware,
he's notoriously, he's notorious for that, isn't he? Just going to people's backyards and taking titles off people. So
yeah, as much as he's gone on the road to defend his titles and he's beaten some good fighters, he's never fought on a scale like this before, and that could be a big factor in this fight. However, Usyk has traveled the world as an amateur everywhere. He's done everything as a pro. It's got to count for something, isn't it?
Yeah, I personally don't think. I think Usyk himself, he's funny, but he's like a robot a bit, isn't he? I think maybe it's just the way they train or the culture out there. I really don't think he gives a shit about sort of the crowd and stuff like that. It seems like, if anything, the crowd seem to like him as well. So he's not like obviously he doesn't speak full English, but he's not a sort of a bit of a dickhead or anything where it'd be all AJ and boo Usyk. So I think he'll be okay. Like I said, he's done it at every level now. He's done it at cruiserweight. He was unified there. He's been amateur. He's been to the Olympics. So I don't see maybe the occasion being an issue, because he seems like he's the sort of person who's just quite focused on his boxing as opposed to everything that comes with it. I don't think it's more of a glory thing for him. So yeah, but you never know. I think just generally it's a lot of unknowns in this fight. Yeah. I personally wouldn't say it's a 50-50. I still lean towards AJ in terms, just because, again, that is just me basing on what I've seen Usyk get at heavyweight. Because I think, AJ's he's a different kettle of fish to the likes of Chisora, isn't he? So he hits harder than Chisora, and he's faster and more mobile than him. So
he's a better athlete, isn't he? Let's be honest, than Chisora overall.
I mean, Chisora was close in the distance, and Chisora is notoriously slow as well. So I don't know. I think a lot of unknowns. I was going to say, what do you, in terms of maybe sort of how Usyk wins, what do you think he sort of excels in, and maybe what might get him to be able to nick it, or do you think maybe to knock him out?
I think Usyk needs to survive, obviously, probably the first 4 or 5 rounds keep it tight. He's got a good defense, so I think he can keep it. He's got, he probably has arguably the best feet in the division. I think the best footwork. I think he can, if as long as he keeps away from AJ, keeps it tight, and establishes some sort of awkward boxing rhythm against AJ. I think he can I think he can certainly beat AJ on points if he's given the fair crack of the whip. And if the British judges, let's be honest, British judges are just as bad as any judges in the world. We make out we have the best, but we don't. There's been loads of robberies last few years. So I think if he gets a fair crack of the whip, he could definitely take it on points. But I also think AJ is quite vulnerable, and I think he could take AJ potentially late. Can't see him beating AJ early, but I think he could take it late.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I think if Usyk was to win, it'd be the case of him maybe just neutralizing AJ, because it's no secret that AJ's gas tank can be a bit ropey sometimes. Obviously, he's a big guy, a lot of muscle. I presume he'll come in light for this to be able to compete a bit more, and like I said, and try to savor the tank a bit, similar to how he did with Ruiz. But yeah, I think I wouldn't say he's chinny, but he's been exposed before, hasn't he? So multiple times, really. Takam wobbled him a bit. Povetkin not wobbled him a bit, and they're both smallish heavyweights. So you never know. Usyk's shown, while he doesn't necessarily look like he has one punch knockout power, he breaks down people and his manager's neutralizing. You see how he did to Bellew and stuff as well. He got to him eventually, and when he did, he was flat out, wasn't he? So
it's interesting. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, I'm with you. I think if Usyk was to win, I can't see him winning on points, as bad as that sounds. I feel like, just like how British judging is at the moment, you'd have to really make AJ look like a twat, basically, to get that. But I think, if AJ gasses and maybe tires him out and breaks him down eventually, he might get to him. So I'd say either, a very late stoppage, or maybe nick it on points if he gets a fair crack of the whip.
It's interesting that you mentioned the Bellew fight, because I can really see. So I remember that Bellew fight. Bellew said after that he was so exhausted from overthinking every move that's when it led to him getting caught with a punch. And I could see a similar thing happening with AJ. I think Usyk's going to keep AJ guessing for a lot of the fight, and I think AJ's ready for a chess match. He said before the fight, I'm ready to test my boxing ability to the highest level that I've ever been, and that could work against him. I think AJ personally needs to use his advantages against Usyk. I think he being the bigger man, the bigger puncher, probably the faster puncher, more explosive athlete. I think he needs to kind of use that as much as he can, because I think if Usyk keeps him guessing, and he could almost wear him out by getting him overthinking, and then he could. That's how I see him taking AJ late, potentially, if he could walk him onto a punch that he doesn't see coming, really.
I think if you box yourself, or when you spar, it is different. It's not necessarily you could be super fit, but if someone's making you think, it's a long time to stay focused for. So I think it's a different kind of being tired, and I think that's what a lot of people maybe don't understand. And Usyk, like you said, he's the master boxer, really, and he's got the feet.
Yeah.
A lot of people say he's like the big Lomachenko, isn't he? So I think I'm with you there. Does he need to box a boxer? I don't think so.
I think he should.
Obviously I think it's an element of it. He wants to control his punches, have to go and be wild with it. But I think he'd be silly to try and play Usyk's game, because to me Usyk is on another level when it comes to that. I would just say, going on to the next point, sort of the big thing. I think the big thing is the size for me. I think where you've seen Usyk get hit where you might not normally get hit, or when he gets hit, at heavyweight. There's been times Chisora caught him and it looked like he felt it, or Chisora was maybe like whacking him and it was moving him a bit more than it would have at a lower weight. I think with someone like AJ, you can't afford to get caught like that, because you said his size and power wise is on another level, isn't it? So I think in terms of AJ winning, size, I think even sort of just being a bit dirty with it and just using your weight on him and sort of smother him and don't let him get into his rhythm, because I think the kind of fighter Usyk is once he gets his sort of dance routine going, it probably is really hard to to get around him. And you got to remember he's a southpaw as well, which is always going to be an issue. So yeah, I'm with you there. I think.
Yeah, I think personally, I think AJ should take him to the trenches if he has to. I know AJ is vulnerable, and we have touched on that, but we haven't seen Usyk dog it out. And I know, and to be fair to him, he hasn't needed to. Like his ability has been superior to everyone he's fought. Yeah. However, I think he's fighting a world class and elite heavyweight champion in AJ, and I think AJ needs to take control of the center of the ring. I think as soon as that first bell goes. Cement himself as the bigger man, use his weight, impose himself on Usyk. I really think he needs to take the fight to him, because I think if he stands and tries to box with Usyk, I think it'll be a long night for him. And I think he needs to make it into a war. And I want to see if Usyk can dog it out. I'm not sure if he can with someone like AJ, because AJ's been there before. Like he's, no matter what you say about AJ, he's been in the trenches with Dillian White. He's been in the trenches with Klitschko. He's he enjoys, even though it's not always the right idea for him, Andy Ruiz, for example, he enjoys getting in there. That he has a dog in him, AJ, and I think he will be more than willing to stand and trade with Usyk. And I think he needs to get Usyk out of his comfort zone, because Usyk's comfort zone is ultimately outboxing his opponent.
Yeah, agreed. And like I said, I think you see it with Lomachenko, you see it with Usyk as well. It's once they've sussed you out, it's very hard to get them out of their rhythm. So yeah, I mean, we do that. I think he just needs to impose himself and just break up even if it's just, again, it doesn't need to go slug it out, but making each punch count and just make him feel it as soon as possible. Because I feel like it goes vice versa as well with Usyk. There's no point in him trying to dog it with AJ, because he's not gonna come out of that better, is he? So I think it'd be interesting to see what styles they go for, but I think inevitably it's gonna have to come to a dog fight at some point, because even Usyk, we say AJ's gas tank, even Usyk working at that level for that long is tiring himself. So. So yeah, I don't know. It's a good fight. I think.
It's a great fight.
Yeah, I think the current notion isn't right, though. I think if people just think he's just going to get blasted out, which he might well do. Who knows? But I think there's a lot of disrespect. I don't think Usyk's getting the respect maybe that.
No, he's not. No.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think after Fury, this is AJ's most dangerous fight. This is the best fight out. This is a more intriguing fight than a Dillian White rematch or anything else apart from Fury. I think this is I think this is a better fight than a Deontay Wilder fight. I think really for AJ. I'm not saying it would be a more entertaining fight than Wilder and AJ, because Wilder and AJ would be bloody class. But however, I do think in terms of what the most difficult and the biggest challenge, the challenge out there, I think Usyk could arguably be the biggest challenge for AJ, I would say.
I think with Usyk, the difference is he brings something different to heavyweight, doesn't it? He's not, normally we're just used to sort of big guys slugging it out and see who comes out better. But yeah, he's his own sort of little freak, really, isn't he? So yeah.
Let's just jump straight into the prediction then. I think, well, Josh, I'm going to ask you, what is your prediction for the fight? What do you think is going to happen? What are the fans putting their money on?
Yeah, I think as much as like you said, some of the experts got 70-30. I don't think it's quite there, but yeah, I'd still go AJ and knockout for me. Okay. I think if he lands, it'll be a difference to what Usyk's been in with, and that's just me going off what I've seen off Usyk at heavyweight. But I'm still very open to the idea of Usyk being dangerous. So if I had to pick, it'd be AJ and probably by knockout.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on this one. I think in the first couple of rounds, I think AJ's going to try and kind of box with Usyk. It's going to be a little bit cagey. And I think he's going to realise that he might end up chasing the fight too much. I think that's when AJ's going to turn the gas on, turn on the heat. And I think he's going to start chasing Usyk and force Usyk to fight. And I think Usyk will probably crumble. I think he might try and dog it out with AJ a little bit and might get hurt. And I think he'll probably crumble around round 5 or 6, I think.
Yeah, I think Usyk's going to have to work a lot harder than AJ will. Do you know what I mean? I think trying to outside box someone bigger than you as well.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, where the size sort of comes in. Again, who knows? That's the exciting.
It's an intriguing fight. It's so interesting.
So that's a good thing, because we get a lot of criticism where it's just sort of walkover fights, and it's quite refreshing to see a pick 'em, really. As much as I'd lean towards AJ, who knows?
I think AJ has an underrated boxing ability as well. Yeah. I think he's a lot better than people give him credit for. I think, don't get me wrong, there are better boxers, technical boxers in the division than him, but from the top of my head, I can only think of two. I'd probably say. I'd say Usyk and Fury are definitely better technically than he is. But I'd say apart from that, really, I wouldn't confidently say there's anyone better, really, than him.
Is he brings that and the athleticism as well, though, isn't
exactly,
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he might not excel too much in anything particularly, but he's very good at everything he does. So even if it's not the best, but AJ knockout for me. Yeah,
that's the AJ knockout times 2. I think that's a good place to leave it there.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, okay. Just a reminder as well, use the code for Manscaped. You have 20% off using the code CLINCH. Give yourselves an early Christmas present. Check out their stuff. It's top drawer. Also, you can follow us on all social medias by clicking our link tree. Okay, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. Give us a follow. Help us grow our channel. Yeah, we're a small channel, but we're hoping to build as much as we can over the next 12 months. Thanks a lot, guys. See you soon.